Hello, welcome along to Singapore for the Singapore Airlines International Cup and KrisFlyer International Sprint Weekend. Grant Knowles with me. Grant, it's been a little while since Hong Kong when we caught up on Teletrack and we found a few winners that day as well.
We didn't do too badly there, but this looks quite tricky actually. I've been going through some of the form. It doesn't look too easy, but you certainly amassed a nice international field.
Yeah, it's a really good lineup for both the Cup and the KrisFlyer. We'll go through the KrisFlyer first up, and Bell Sprinter comes here from Australia, a winner of a big Group 1 there too. Starts to go the Galaxy, and then chased home a very handy type in Black Caviar last time around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that form line is probably the form line that we've got to watch out for. There is rumour that he doesn't jump on time all the way, but certainly that form, there doesn't appear to be a Black Caviar in this race to me, and
no.
That obviously brings you into the race with a massive chance.
Yeah, he gets a little bit back in his races, Bell Sprinter, but has settled in really well to Singapore. The connections particularly happy, and they always go particularly hard in this sprint race. So some hope if it can finish off the way it did in that sprint in Sydney just a couple of starts ago. So it's a red hot chance in this Bell Sprinter. What about Lucky 9? Probably not quite at its best. We saw this guy in Hong Kong. Quality galloper when it's at its best.
Absolutely, but doesn't seem to be right at his best at the moment. It's been about 3 starts since his last victory, but I think he's going to have to raise his game. But there are a couple of real speedy sorts here. Some of that Dubai form's represented, and I think he might just have to lift his game, but maybe back end of the quartet.
Yeah, probably in the wrong spot last time over the 1,200 metres in Hong Kong. Just couldn't make ground down the outside. Super Easy's the local champ. I'm not sure he's an out-and-out 1,200 metre horse, although he did win our biggest domestic sprint, the Lion City, at his last start. He's going to be about the place, but whether he's going to be in contact with them in the early stages is my little concern.
I saw the horse I heard when I got here. Everybody was talking about this horse, and looking at his form, I think he let the team down a little bit when he went to Hong Kong as well, didn't he? Because the connections were a little bit bullish that he had run a big race there, and he seemed to fluff his lines a bit.
His first up run was quite good, but second up in the actual Hong Kong International, they were just too tough for him. Yeah. Always tough for our horses to go to Hong Kong because they don't race anywhere bar Kranji, and they go the other way, and the competition's hotter. So he's a really good horse. Won his first 12 straight, the joint record holder here in Singapore. So that's super easy. What about Belmont Mast? Ed Lynham has brought this guy all the way from Ireland. He went by ferry from Ireland to England, and then he's flown out here. He was in Dubai, of course, earlier on in the year, so this horse certainly knows how to travel.
He's ridden Ronaldo the Wizard pretty close up there, and that form line's got to be quite strong because he was quite a revelation in Dubai this season. He was a multiple winner. I think this horse has got a chance here. He's a bit of a sneaky one because you don't really have that much other form, especially with horses coming from the east. So I think he must be a runner here, and these guys from Ireland, they don't travel unless they think they've got themselves a ticket.
Yeah, better on the all-weather possibly, but hasn't really been tested to any huge degree on the turf, so we'll see how he goes. Duck Scholar, Doug Watson's got a couple of horses here in Singapore. This guy, he's well beaten over the 1,000 metres down the straight, but he's a strong horse. He's raced over 1,600 metres and beyond.
He's got a bit of couple of lengths to find on the other horse that was it Big Spender?
Yeah, he finished 5th, and Duck Scholar was a few lengths off him. So I don't know about him, but his previous form was quite good, and he's going to be strong anyway at the end of it.
He should be strong, and Doug, obviously lovely to have him take a chance and bring 2 horses over here as well. But the Shay Shay form line to me is the one that represents the most recent form, and on that the other horse seems to have his measure.
Kavanagh, he was making a little bit of steady progress in the last race, the Golden Shaheen. Quite a nice win prior to that in Dubai. Another one that we don't know a lot about getting onto the turf here, but we do know that Mike de Kock does know how to prepare a racehorse.
I had a chat with Trevor this morning. He says the horse has travelled really well. They've tried this horse over all sorts of distances, and he came second in the Guineas in Cape Town over the mile, just didn't get the mile. So back to the sprints, he seemed to be pretty decent, and I think this horse comes in with a little bit of a dark horse chance here, and Mark de Kock, as you know as well, whenever he's got to run in a race, you've got to take him pretty seriously.
Just segueing off the sprint a little bit, but disappointing that we couldn't get a runner in the Cup from Mike de Kock's yard. Gugu, I was really looking forward to seeing her here.
Absolutely. I think he had 3 attempts. I think he was looking at bringing maybe the Apache as well, and then Treasure Beach, and disappointing because he's had some success here as well.
Yeah, both Treasure Beach and Gugu not quite going on with it in Hong Kong recently. Now, Mr. Big is the next horse that ran so well in Dubai, as you mentioned earlier on. First up run, he was beaten by Super Easy, but I think he's a genuine 1,200 metre horse, fast horse, and a genuine chance in this.
I think he's got a big chance here. And again, that Shay Shay form line, that's the one that I was referring to earlier on. I think Shay Shay has been underrated in terms of where the handicapper has him right now, because ever since that horse has been gelded, he's turned the corner. And I certainly think this horse is going to represent a big form line and a big shot.
We move on to Dash A Go Go, the Japanese horse. Terrific horse, probably not quite in the class of Lord Kanaloa, the stablemate to this guy, but what we do know is the Japanese produce the very, very best, and once they travel, they only travel for one reason, that's to win.
Well, it was the Japanese horse that we selected out in Hong Kong when he was victorious in that Hong Kong sprint. Don't really know much about this fella either. As you say, he doesn't really have his brothers or his stablemates' reputation. I think he might have one or two to find here, but certainly the Japanese are pretty bullish.
Yeah, his last run, I saw the tape of it, and he was making steady progress. It was beaten 2 lengths off Lord Kanaloa. That sort of form may be good enough to run a big race here in Singapore. Goalkeeper, we haven't seen him at the races since January, but from all reports, the rider Danny Beasley suggesting off his barrier trials he's almost in career best form.
He just seems to be taking a big jump in class here, hasn't he? He hasn't really been competing at Group 1 level or even other group level. So for me, it's a big jump up in class for him. Whether he's up to it at this stage of his career, well, I think we'll only see on Sunday.
I'd say it'd be doubtful whether he's up to the class. One that is probably up to the class is Emerald Hill. He was absolutely flying on our all-weather track. Moved to the turf last time. It was a pretty good run. Subsequently, he's trialled enormous, this horse. I think he's going to be on the pace for a long way.
It looks like he's going to have plenty of pace and he'll be up there for a long way in that race. Whether he's going to be able to hold on to it and have some of these other speedsters running down at him, again, I think he's going to have a hard ask. There's a couple of horses here that have proven international Group 1 form. He doesn't it yet.
No, he does not. And what about Speedy Cat? He was able to win a Group 3, the Merlion Trophy on the all-weather. Not a bad run. He finished just behind Super Easy in the Lion City Cup. Another one, just a question mark on his class, I think.
Well, we haven't really given Super Easy too much of a chance. If he's still got that type of length to make up with Super Easy, he's going to be struggling to win a race like this as well. Maybe he can improve to the back end of a quartet.
Yeah, I don't think we want to totally discount Super Easy, but I have left him out of my top 4. What have you rounded off as the major players in the Chris Flyer?
I've gone with the Australian horse, Bell Sprinter, to beat home the Irish Raider, and then back in third, Mr. Big, and then probably fourth to Super Easy.
Okay, I'm going to be tipping with Mr. Big. I thought he might be able to jump straight to the front and win this. Thought Bell Sprinter was the major player in this. Dasher Go for third, and I gave Lucky 9 the Evergreen from Hong Kong, so 7, 1, 8 and 2 for the Chris Flyer International Sprint. You're watching our tally track preview of the big races here in Singapore. That's the Chris Flyer International Sprint. Let's check some of the reaction of the contenders after the barrier draw.
Thoughts on the draw?
Yeah, good. I mean, I was just saying to Hats, you could come here and draw 10 and 11 with 2 runners, so 6 and 7 is good enough. There's pretty good speed drawn out wide, so I'd expect, as I said earlier in the week, they'll run along. I don't think, hopefully there shouldn't be too many excuses. It's up to the boys now.
Jason, barrier 10?
More than happy, Simon. Yeah, I'd much rather have him on the drawn out a bit rather than on the inside. The way he gets away from the gates, he's better off out there. So suit his race pattern, I think.
Barrier 1, Duck Scholar, you happy with that one?
The Woolen.
They're watching the Woolen.
We are very happy with the number 1.
Barrier 2, what's your thoughts on that?
Very happy with it. I'd like to study the race. A lot of the pace, I think, is out wide, but we'll be going forward. When you get gate 2, we'll go forward.
The sprint?
I think the Hong Kong horse, Lucky 9.
Super Easy.
Lucky 9.
Bell Sprinter, Australian.
Mr. Big, he's going well, and I think blinkers off, he'll get to settle a bit better.
Super Easy, he's got the home ground advantage and a top jockey. I think Super Easy will get the money.
In the sprint, I'm going to go for Bell Sprinter. Australian sprinters are the best in the world, so that's my reason for picking him.
The sprint, I fancy Super Easy. Bomb-proof here in Singapore.
I like Belmont Mast, hoping he shows his Tabita form on turf.
Bell Sprinter. If he brings his A game like the Galaxy, then I think that he's got the ability to do it. His pattern from race 10 is to go back. He's the speed up front. Then he can, if he can perform like the Galaxy, then it's Bell Sprinter.
The second of our feature races on Sunday, and the biggest race of the year in Singapore is the Singapore Airlines International Cup. Grant, an outstanding field. This will be my 7th International Cup, and clearly the best race I've seen. Many saying the best we've had in Singapore in the whole history of the race.
Top class. I mean, there's abundance of Group 1 winners in here representing form all across the globe. So I think you're in for a real humdinger of a race, and lovely to have the horses coming from as far as Germany, and probably one of the leading contenders as well.
Yeah, Pastorius. One horse that's probably not in the best of form is Mayondra, but it is in the care now of Doug Watson. He's going to train it for the first time. I thought his run in Dubai was okay in the World Cup, but going back to Hong Kong, we saw it behind Red Cadeau run into 3rd position.
I've actually put it in my selections based on that run because that was a decent effort and it wasn't really disgraced in Dubai last time on the World Cup as well. I think there's improvement to come from this fella. He's already won 3 Group 1s. You can't take that away from him. That's under the belt. And a lot of these horses in here are 1 and 2 time Group 1 winners. So he's obviously got the ability and I think he might just improve. I've put him in my selections. I think he's going to run there or thereabouts.
Yes, let's move on to number 2, which is Military Attack. And of course, this guy comes in outstanding form, winning the Audemars Piguet QE2 Cup at his last start. He's going to be reunited too with the rider Zach Purton, who has ridden him twice for 2 big wins.
He's going for 4 in a row, but the interesting thing for South Africans is this is by Oratorio. That stallion now stands out at Aventure, so there's going to be a lot of people back home in Cape Town watching and having a look to see how this fella does. He's already got a reputation there as being a Group 1 winner. I think he's going to be competitive here.
Yeah, he's been in great form and he's got to be one of the leading candidates. John Moore with a couple of runners. This is clearly the best of the 2, I think.
Definitely.
Let's move on to the German you were referring to earlier on, Pastorius. And this guy comes in super form. He ran 4th behind Frankel at Ascot last October, and the horses ran 2nd and 3rd were outstanding horses as well. I thought that was pretty good form, but then he turns up and wins the Prix Gannet, betting a top-class lineup at Longchamp just 4 weeks ago. Coming here with serious credentials.
Another 3-time winning Group 1 horse, and that's just from 7 attempts at Group 1 level. So he's a big runner here, and I think all the talk's been about him. Apparently his work on the track's been very good. He's settled in nicely, and they're bullish of a big run, and his form suggests that he's the horse to beat.
Yeah, they'll probably target Royal Ascot with him as well. So a big move to bring him from France out here to Singapore and then all the way back to Ascot. But he's a horse in super form at the moment, Pastorius, and certainly the one to beat, I think. Red Cadeau, well, he's back from the tennis show in Japan. That was over 3,200 metres. He has performed well at the 2,000 metres in the past, but it's going to have to be a very good training performance by Ed Dunlop, I thought, to freshen him up from that 2-mile race.
I think he's got more air miles than quite a few of us put together. He's well travelled. He must be as gutsy as anything because he always gives of his best whenever he gets to the race course, and he's going to give a really good account of himself. There's a lot of people that fancy his chances here. I'm one of them. I think he'll be the one that gives Pastorius most to think about.
Okay, that's Red Cadeau. Moving on to Dan Excel, the second of the John Moore runners. He was always nominated for this race, but quite honestly, he was a reserve up until winning the Champions Mile in Hong Kong a few weeks ago over the 1,600 metres. Not the strongest edition of that race, but nonetheless, he got the job done.
He won the race, and you can't take that away from him, and it's going to be a tough ask for him here. I think he's jumped in class again. If he's up to it, he might be able to go back end of quartets, but for me, it's going to be a tough ask.
Hunter's Light is the next. He'd been Sarua, Godolphin. He's been here 18 days before the start of the race, which is very, very unusual for them to arrive. If you take out his Dubai World Cup run, where he's a little bit disappointing, his form in Dubai was outstanding.
Prior to that, I think they would have gone into the Dubai World Cup thinking he was going to be a contender there as well, but he fluffed his lines a bit there. Rumour has it that he's doing really well here, and I think they are pretty bullish about him having a decent performance here. He's just got a couple of lengths to find on some of the other runners that were in that Dubai World Cup.
They backed him into favouritism on the English bookmakers in the Dubai World Cup, so he's got serious credentials here. Mawengo is the Aussie horse. Now, he's a Singaporean horse these days, but he's only arrived last Sunday. He's going to be trained by Michael Freeman. He won the Doomben Cup this time last year, this exact weekend last year. Good horse. We've just got to wait and see what we get from him on the weekend, I think.
This is last 3 runs for me have been a little bit disappointing in Group 1 company. He does seem to have to raise his game if he's going to be competitive here, but maybe they've got him right, and maybe that change of scenery is going to do him the world of good. But for me, I'd be watching him.
His run in the CF Stakes at Caulfield back in February behind All Too Hard was outstanding, but since then he hasn't quite gone on with it. Malakalok, Jane Chapel-Hine with this galloper, last start winner at Newmarket. He's been in very good form, and he does look like a horse that is improving, albeit a 7-year-old.
7-year-old, he's only been really competitive at Group 3 level. There's a big jump up to Group 1 here, taking on the likes of Pastorius and the others. For me, it's going to be a tough ask for him. He's going to have to be right at the top of his game, and is there still improvement to come as a 7-year-old? I'm not too sure.
Flax is the local galloper, ran 3rd in this race last year after setting the speed. I'm not quite sure he's in the same form as last year, but a gutsy little campaigner, and little being the operative word, he's tiny.
Listening to what Byron Foster said, who probably suits him well because he's not too big either, but that combination's done pretty well together. This is a Silvano, so the South Africans will be having a good look and a cheer, but he's going to have to lift his game if he wants to be a winner, but I do think he might be able to sneak into the back end of the places.
Yeah, Byron's only half the man of us.
Absolutely.
Probably a little less than half of us.
You should see him at a golf ball.
Yeah, I have seen him at a golf ball, unfortunately, and the money sort of went that way rather than this way. What about Lazar, Pat Shaw, the Emma Stable? Good win last time, but he's a good gutsy horse. He's had all sorts of problems. He came to Pat's Yard with a broken pelvis of all things, but I think his time might have bypassed him, but a very gutsy horse.
gutsy horse, and great that Pat's got a runner for the South Africans to be supportive, because they always do support him. He's going to have a tough ask to win a race like this, but he's a contender and he's got a ticket.
Deep Pockets is the next one. He hasn't won a race for a long time, but he has been placed in the Gold Cup, our biggest domestic race, and also the Derby, $1 million race. So although he hasn't quite won for a while, he has been very competitive.
I think big jumps for the next 3 runners, all big jumps in class. They're all going to have to take on Group 1 horses, which they haven't really been taking on an international level. I think they're all going to struggle a little bit, but Deep Pockets for me, he's going to have to raise his game.
Ready to Strike, if you had said 6 months ago he'd be running in an international cup, you would have laughed, but he has hit top form, but whether he's good enough to worry these, I'd be doubting.
I think the same can be said. He's going to have to raise his game. The form's there, he's obviously pretty well and he's been racing well. It's a big ask to jump to take some of these Group 1 horses on.
Now down the bottom is Better Life, and you were sort of suggesting that these bottom horses might not play a part in the finish, but this is potentially the best horse I've seen in Singapore, Better Life. She is an outstanding mare. She won the Gold Cup last year and is back in really good form. I think, I'm going to give her a sneaky chance in this for the locals. Probably crossing the fingers and a little bit, wishful, but she's a very, very good horse.
You know the horse better than I do. All I can say is that for a filly to be taking on some of these guys at this type of level is going to be a tough ask anyway. But her form is pretty solid, and there is certainly a nice reputation that goes about her here in Singapore. So she must have some sort of a chance. But for me, some of these hard-knocking Group 1 horses are going to be tough to get past.
They will indeed, but she won the QE2 Cup, she won the Gold Cup last year. Outstanding horse, Better Life, and I wish Connections well. She's certainly the best of the local runners from Singapore's point of view. I'm with Pastorius here, Grant. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a Pastorius man as well, and I'm going to include Red Caddo to run second. For my third choice will be Meandra, and then Military Attack back in fourth.
Okay, I'm going to go with Pastorius, Military Attack for second, Better Life, and throwing in Red Caddo. So 3, 2, 13 and 4 for the big one, the Singapore Airlines International Cup. Thanks for your time. Hopefully we've found a winner there.
Excellent stuff. Always nice being here, and look forward to catching up with you.
Yeah, we'll catch up with you next time. We'll leave you with some of the reactions from the connections after the barrier draw to the Singapore Airlines International Cup.
John, 1 and 4 for Dan Excel and Military Attack. Your thoughts?
Absolutely ecstatic. Couldn't be better. Dan Excel, as I mentioned to the press, was a bit sus at 2000, but drawing the gate 1 and probably having a probable leader of Ready to Strike, he's going to get the gun run in a box seat like he did in the mile. And I believe that at the 300 he'll be in front. So if the favourites get any traffic jams, you've got a horse with a great each-way chance.
Military Attack probably drawn perfectly as well.
He's absolutely drawn one better than he did in the QE. We all know he gets 2,000 on his head. We've got Zach Purton on board, who's riding on a real wave at the present moment. So from there, I think he's probably my pick of the two.
Meander Barrier 12, happy with that?
Well, when you run 2,000 meters, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we are quite happy with this because normally when the jockey starts on the far outside, he's not going to be pushed to the inside and get into the traffic. So our tactics probably will be staying in front. So we are quite happy with the barrier draw.
Laurie, Barrier 3?
Yeah, good. Very good. Good jockey, good barrier. With a fit horse, so she'll get a nice run.
The Cup?
Red Caddo, I think it's a big ask to come back from 32 to 2000, but he's done it before. He's a very experienced campaigner, drawn beautifully at 7, and he's looked fantastic, I think, in track work.
Pastorius.
Military Attack, he's got super form from Hong Kong. He's drawn a good gate. He'll be risen positively. I like Military Attack.
Pastorius, if he brings his A game from over in Europe, I think he's too classy for them.
Red Caddo.
I think Pastorius, that was a really good Gannet that he won last time, so Pastorius for me, the big one.
Military Attack.
I like Pastorius. He's a class act, won the Prix Gannet, and I really like his chances.
Military Attack. Very confident about Military Attack.
Red Caddo.
Pretty keen on Military Attack. He's put 3 together, and I think he's probably underestimated, and drawing gate 4 is a real bonus for him.